everybody. So welcome to the last talk of the conference, of the workshop. Our last speaker is Baptiste Sertre, and he's going to talk to us about word solvability of TODA conformal field theories.
Thank you for the introduction, and thanks a lot for the organizers for giving me the opportunity to speak today. So, for a change, I will talk about TODA conformal field theories, which are a family of 2D CFTs, which have been studied quite a lot over the past 3 years. First in the physics literature and now in the mathematical literature. And so my goal today will be to review some recent progress made on these TODA CFTs, but actually I will try to explain to you how the study of these TODA CFTs can actually tell you more about the connection between probability and other approaches to two-dimensional CFTs. To say, we'll try to explain, like, in some sense, the connection between the probabilistic framework that is inherent to these TODA CFTs, the mathematical approach to these TODA CFTs, and some other approaches to CFT, like, for instance, vertex algebras. So, before starting, let me say that my blackboard talks are always a disaster. So if my handwriting is really bad, please do not hesitate to interrupt me. And if something is not clear, please do not hesitate to ask questions. So what are these TODA CFTs? So TODA CFT, the simplest example of TODA CFT is the Liouville CFT. And in Liouville CFT, what you study is a random function, so the field, takes values in a two-dimensional, like a Riemann surface, and has values in one-dimensional real vector space. And it's well known that this Liouville CFT, it has conformal symmetry, some form of conformal symmetry, which is prescribed in some sense by the Vieira-Zoro algebra. And Liouville CFT actually is the simplest example of TODA CFT. So what are these TODA CFTs? There are some generalization of this Liouville CFT, which are indexed by a complex simple algebras. And in which you study a field which still takes values in a Riemann surface, but the target space is now higher dimensional real vector space. So that is to say, we now have a function like a vector actually. So the field under consideration is now a vectorial field. On this rank, this R is connected to this simple algebra and corresponds to this rank. And the specificity of this TODA CFT is that in addition, so they have conformal symmetry, but in addition to this conformal symmetry, there is something that is often called higher spin symmetry. And which is encoded by these W algebras. Okay, so this is where these TODA CFTs appear. But, okay, first you have to justify why it's interesting to study this kind of CFTs. I guess it's interesting because we are able to construct them using probability, so this is one justification. But actually, apart from that, these CFTs arise in many different contexts.
So there is a family of this CFT for any choice of n?
So it's R. So for any complex simple algebra, you have a TODA CFT.
For any complex?
Yeah. That's
and in the case n equal 1, I mean, you have
so for
one possible family.
So this is for G equal SL2.
Okay. And you have other possible choice for...
Yeah, for example, take just SL3 or more generally SLN.
Okay.
And then if you take any complex simple algebra, you have a new TODA CFT. And actually to it, you have W algebra. So the W algebra that we consider is just, okay, to any such algebra, you can associate a W algebra, which is the algebra of symmetry of the TODA CFT defined from this algebra. So why do we even bother about this Toda CFT. Actually, they rise in many different settings. It depends on your mindset, but if you do some, if you're more in the algebraic mood, you might encounter them in the context of vertex algebras, thanks to the connections to the representation theory of W algebras. But actually, there are many other places where you can encounter these Toda CFTs. So if you are more in a geometric mindset, I don't know, you might encounter them like in many different settings. So so this is like, of course, a bit abstract for the moment, but it should have some connection with Eier-Teschmüller, or at least for the moment it's rendered that it has connection with X-Vendors, at least the classical theory. And it's also related to some objects that you encounter in algebraic geometry. Via, for instance, the AGT correspondence. So the AGT correspondence, the general framework of this AGT correspondence is the connection between this Toda CFT and the four-dimensional gauge theories. Okay, there are many other places. I can quote like statistical physics and probability. For instance, the three-state spots. In the three-state spots, you should be able to see this W3, the W algebra related to SS3. So there should be some connection with Toda. Actually, other models include like these web models, considered by Augustin Lafay, for instance, and like higher rank linear model. On the list it's not an exhaustive list. You have many other examples of places where you might encounter this Toda CFT. So it's just to say that, okay, it's not just we take a generalization of Liouville just for the sake of taking a generalization of Liouville. It's really something that appears in many different settings. Okay. And today the goal of this presentation will be to first explain to you how to define this model, so using probability. Or the theory, using some probability. And then I will try to explain to you where we can see this higher spin symmetry within the probabilistic model. So we have constructed a model, so how can we say that this model has this kind of symmetry? So symmetries on the model. On the third part, I will not have time, so if we have time, I will discuss some probabilistic techniques, which are quite interesting. But I'm afraid that I have the bad habit of going over time, so I'm afraid that this one will just skip. So far, so good? Okay, so now Einstein will first define this model. So the first part is definition of the model. So as I just said, so for Toda CFT, you first need to fix some complex simple algebra G. So you start by fixing a complex simple algebra G. So basically for us, for the purpose of this talk, what this will tell us is that this gives us real vector space like R to the R, where R is the rank of the real algebra. And this vector space comes equipped with some special basis. And the basis, I will denote it EY. What I mean with the special basis is that this basis has, we prescribe the scalar product, the matrix of a scalar product. So the claim is, if I take a complex simple algebra like this gives me naturally associated to it rank R, so I get R to the R. And in this space, I have a very special basis. So maybe I can illustrate what is this basis in the case that the simplest case. So in SL2, you just have the R with this. So if I take G equals SL3, what is the basis that I will get? So basically, okay, let me just draw R2. So this is R2, the visual R2. I just put an element here, E1. And I have another element in that direction, so E2. And the angle is 2 pi over 3. So for those who are familiar to this, just these are simple roots of the algebra. Okay. And so in that case, the matrix of scalar product is just this matrix in that case is just minus 1. So this length is square root 2. This one is square root 2 as well. And the scalar product is just minus 1. Good. Okay. So I also said in the definition that you want to study a random function which takes values on the Riemann surface. So let's just fix also sigma Riemann surface compact. And I equip it with a smooth Riemannian metric G. So it can have a boundary, it can have no boundary. This will be actually this will give rise to different definitions. So now we want to define a function, a random function, taking values in this Riemann surface, and which have values in this higher dimensional vector space. So how do you do that? I think we've seen this construction like many times this week, so I think I'm allowed to write it without any warning. We use a path integral. So the path integral is just, you want to define a measure on some functional space, which typically will be a Sobolev space with some index S. Our function from sigma to this vector space. So it can be thought as just you take each component is in HS. So you want to define a path integral, you want to define a measure in a functional space by setting for f taking values that takes as an entry a field which spits out a real number or complex number or whatever. So I assume it is continuous unbounded. F of phi. So phi will play the role of this random field. And this is just 1 over 0, so this partition function. Integral over f. I sum over all the possible fields in my theory. F of phi exponential minus S of phi d phi. Maybe I can put a warning, the famous. So this is of course non-rigorous, and you have to give it a proper meaning. The reason for that, the same as this morning. So this is like a sort of Lebesgue measure on this functional space, which of course doesn't really make sense. So we have to take care of this. So this path integral it's defined from an action. Typically, you know, I mean, it's just a usual path integral. This action, the quantum field, like the random field here, will have a tendency to remain close to the minimal of this action. So it's natural that this action comes from a classical problem. The classical problem that is in Toda CFT actually appears in many different contexts. Maybe I can write the Toda action before stating all the appearance of this. What is the action that we put in a path integral? So it's called the Toda action. What is the Toda action? The Toda action is functional, so as an entry I take phi which is in my functional space. And I first have a quadratic term which is just the Sobolev energy. So this is just the free field. Plus, I have some interaction term. So this interaction term are first a bulk term, which is 2Rg. Forget the volume form. Plus another term. I'll just write everything and I explain to you what it means. Okay, this is the Toda action. So, what is the meaning of this writing? Sorry?
Can you write it slightly bigger, the exponent? What is written in the exponent?
It's
Yeah.
it's gamma over 2 EI scalar product with phi. And here it's the same thing. Gamma EI scalar product with phi. Is it any better or?
Yes, it's bigger.
At least it's bigger, yeah. Yeah, my handwriting is really like. So basically, what's this expression? So first, here you have this quadratic term. So I will first show you like the terms that depend on. So I fixed two things at the beginning, like a Lie algebra on the Riemannian metric. So this thing only depends on
Is any of these symbols, the q's and phi's are very similar?
Oh yeah, plus my q has the tail on the right, the wrong side, but it's... Okay, I close the q, and the q is closed.
Okay.
So in red, just you have some geometric terms. So these are just coming from the Riemannian metric that are fixed at the beginning, and they are very geometrical. So this one is like the Ricci-Scar curvature or the geodesic curvature. And I also have some quantities that come from the Lie algebra itself. So this G, so in red, so geometric terms. What I mean by that is just they are fixed by the remainder metric. And you also have some other quantities which are determined by the Lie algebra. So this Q is fixed by the gamma on the Lie algebra. This EI, they are fixed by the Lie algebra.
Can I ask handwriting project?
Yes.
Is that a mu I or mu gamma I, the second one?
Partial I.
It's a partial. It's just to indicate that it's on the boundary, so it's a partial like the.
Oh.
It's good at the
The algebra is also G.
Yeah.
You have to be very careful with the way you write the G to it, like it looks at different fonts now.
Like which G?
Yeah, but you have a mathfrak G and the normal G.
No, this one is mathfrak G. It's easy. It has a the square. So okay, what is this total action? Why do we consider this kind of action? So I just told you before, like this path integral, so the tendency to concentrate on the minimum of the action. So what are the minimum of this action? It is the classical field of the theory.
Well, sorry, more the serious question. Why do you call capital Q as a thing related to the Lie algebra?
So I can give you the expression. So Q, it's called the background charge. It's just gamma rho plus 2 over gamma rho check, rho whatever. Where rho is a Weyl vector, Weyl vector. So this is fixed by the Lie algebra. I didn't want to really. This comes from the Lie algebra. And so this action, where does it come from? So if you take the simplest case of G equal SL2, what you get are the Liouville equation, which arise naturally in the question related to uniformization of Riemann surfaces. If you take a G different than SL2, you have a similar problem, which is more related to embeddings of the universal cover of sigma into like this kind of symmetric spaces. So you also have similar interpretation for the Toda equation. I can also say that the Toda equation is also appeared in the theory of by the X bundles. Like if you take cyclic X bundles, then the Hitchin equation tell you that you are a solution of the Toda equations. So basically, from a solution of Hitchin equation for cyclic X bundle, you can determine a solution of Toda equations. But okay, this is just a fancy way of talking about this. And there are many different settings where it appears as well, like in integrable system, you are naturally led to studying this kind of Toda equations. So it's just to say that this action doesn't come from just you want to generalize maybe. It has a deep meaning.
What is the relation to the usual Toda lattice in PDEs?
So it's just a different way of parametrizing. So I can write, in the case of SLN, I can write the EI in terms of basis of Rn plus 1, and I can write that EI is Vi plus 1 minus Vi.
Okay.
And in that case, so the interaction is just phi I plus 1 minus phi I, so it's...
Thank you.
So this is the Toda action. Now I want to make sense of this path integral. So it's exactly the same as what we saw this morning, or what we saw in maybe Coulomb-Stoke or whatever. You have a quadratic term. So thanks to this quadratic term, you can just treat everything as this term as a random Nikodym derivative with respect to the law of the GFF. So what I mean is this term in the action. So the interpretation is that if you look at exponential minus 1/2, so this term is just x. At least in the closed case, I assume we have the boundary for the sake of simplicity. But this term, quadratic term, I'll just do some integration by parts, and I'll just represent it as a scalar product between x and minus Laplacian over 2 pi x. So it's a phi. And you see this term in the action, I want to make sense of this term in the action. And the thing is, this is a Gaussian measure actually. So if I write with either it's a plus or a minus here, and I'll never get it right, so I will not try. This is the same as the probability measure with respect to a Gaussian free field. Actually, it may be cheating. So this gives rise to a Gaussian free field. But also, like in the Liouville case, you're losing a degree of freedom if you just look at the Gaussian free field, since the Gaussian free field has zero mean in metric G. So you need to compensate this by adding some constant mode DC. So the interpretation that this thing is just the tensor product of this DC, okay, or whatever. But if I want to interpret this, I have first a zero mode, then GFF x, and I look at the function x plus c. So let's say phi is x plus c. And so what is this probability measure? So it's just, if you think of this as a Gaussian measure, what you want to define is the Gaussian field, the covariance kernel, is the inverse of this operator. So I just inverse minus Laplacian, which is nothing but the green function. So the GFF that I will consider is this kind of is defined by this kind of expression. Another way to see it is that you just take the usual GFF on the surface, and you take some independent copies. This defines me the interpretation of this term, this quadratic term in the action. Then I need to define the other terms. So this one it's easy because the GFF is so the GFF x gives a sublayer class with negative index, so I can always integrate it against the scalar curvature. But the exponential of free field, I need some subtlety is required to make sense of it. And for this, I will use a theory of Gaussian indicative chaos. So the theory of Gaussian indicative chaos tells you that if you want to make sense of this object by considering, you define an object by considering first first you need to regularize your field, and then you sort of compensate the rate of divergence as epsilon goes to 0. So this defines Radon measure and sigma and here the regularization has to be chosen in a specific way. Like you average your VFF on geodesic circle in the of radius epsilon in the geometric G, if you want to get a conformal. So this is a way to define all the quantities that appear in this Stoller action. So now I can put all the pieces together. And I see that, in the end, I have a progressive interpretation of the Laplace integral.
But if on the top you write some sigma height maps to some G quotient, okay, what does this mean?
So in the case of SLN, so this STD is like a universal cover. In this Gmod case, SLN mod SUN. And the problem is that of finding an equivalent harmonic map from the universal cover of this Gmod case.
That the total action set point gives the something.
Yeah, so the classical field, like the critical points of this action, are solution of this Toda equations. And the solution of Toda equation, they describe, thanks to this Toda equation, you can describe some harmonic maps, equivalent harmonic maps on this universal cover to this Gmod case.
Okay.
So a solution of Toda equation gives you such a map, such an embedding.
Okay.
Okay. So now I can put everything together and I'll write the main definition. So for f, like before, I define f of phi to be the limit as epsilon goes to 0 of like a determinant, this regularized determinant, times integral over this vector space of f of x plus c, expectation, potential minus x epsilon. So this v, it's read, okay, I forgot to write it. This is the v term, like the potential. So you basically you write your action in terms of one potential on the quadratic term. And so you want to define a theory by first regularizing a field. The quadratic term just gives you this DC tensor avec this GFF. And you just, in the end, you just need to recall that you have a potential. And this is the definition of Toda CFT. And then the correlation function. Basically, you want to take f of phi equal exponential a alpha phi of z. But of course, this is not well defined, so you need to go through this randomization procedure. And what you get, so the definition is product of v alpha k of zk. So here alpha 1 are weights that belong to this vector space.
Question?
Yeah.
If I give myself the Gaussian multiplicative chaos as a tool, can I rewrite this without the symbol limit?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. It's just depending on the functional that you consider here. You want to go, like typically you want to consider derivative of the field or exponential of the field. And of course, for this you need, since the field is in h-1, you need to do this kind of procedure. But of course, if you just take f equal 1, then you just have like something fixed. Like you have just GMC, you don't have epsilon. And so if I want to define the correlation function, I want to take some punctures on the surface. Which puncture associates some weights alpha 1 alpha n. And then the correlation functions, they are just defined by considering this kind of expression. So this kind of product. So basically, I define this as this limit. So this time I really need to take a limit of this determinant integral over A. So I have some epsilon. It's really the same procedure as in Gaussian multiplicative chaos. I will normalize using this epsilon. And then I need to add this potential. On the claim, so this is okay, theorem. So for in the case of UV, this is décalé avec David Köppen, Rod Vargas, Lang, Rod Vargas, or Paolo Jun for the general case. So this is for UV. In the case of Toda, this is like a CRV and C Nathan. So to distinguish, this is the long and this is the big for Toda. So the statement is under some assumptions called Seberg bounds. The correlation functions are well defined. Plus, they satisfy some kind of Bell anomaly on different environments. So basic action for a CFT. Maybe I can say a word on the boundary case. In the boundary case, if you want to define this kind of CFT, you have some kind of doubling trick. So if you want to define the theory on this kind of surface, the standard trick is to double the surface. So you consider maybe some people call this Schottky double. So you fix a hyperbolic like a metric G such that it has constant negative scalar curvature inside and zero geodesic curvature on the boundary. On the way to define this kind of CFT is just to say that you start from a function from here. Actually, you can start from a function on double the surface, and then you can actually just look at some well-chosen combination of this, and so you have an evolution from this to this. So you can look at some well-chosen combination of these two. And actually, something that I want to advertise is that in the boundary case for Toda CFT, you have some extra degree of freedom in when you go from one copy to the other. It is to say, to each toe, which is an automorphism of the associated root system, or equivalently of the W algebra. So if you fix an automorphism of the W algebra, you get a different construction for this Toda CFT in the boundary case. So to each such automorphism, you have a different construction of Toda. And it is related to the processes of folding of W algebras. Like for instance, you can recover type Bn out of a type A by folding the root system.
So this is how in automorphism of what?
The root system associated to G. This is just to advertise. So for instance, if you take SLN.
Is it an automorphism of order 2?
Yeah. So I just consider the automorphism of order 2, that's true. For DCAT, there is D4, there's something different. But for instance, for SLN, what I just do is I swap these two. And, these are the simple roots.
So you're saying you can construct different theories for each tau?
Yeah.
So you see it at the level of the action?
Actually, we need to slightly modify the action in that case. Yeah. So for each, and it's related to the folding of W algebras because on the boundary, if you look at this thing, on the boundary, what you will see is only the algebra symmetry would just be the folded one. In that case, you just see like 1, 2, 3, so it would be C2 or B2, 3, C3, B3. Yeah, so it's something different in the boundary case. You have some extra degree of freedom. You can.
For example, if I consider some shifting from the first component to second, and second to third, third to one, something like this, then you get something not CFT.
If you what?
If you consider some like permutation, general permutation, not order 2.
General permutation depends what you mean permutation. Like if it's just at the level of the thing, it's alright, but it's just at the level of doubling. Like if you consider like 2, which is not automorphism of the Dynkin diagram, then it's a bit.
It's not a CFT.
No, I don't think so. Not true.
I'm a little bit lost at what you're doing in this middle third of the board. So can you tell us what the purpose of, like, what are you trying to explain?
It's just in the boundary case there is a trick to construct like the CFT out of the double. Like if you consider the Schottky double of your surface, you have a closed surface. So in the case you have a closed surface. So in the closed surface, you already have this all this GFF, which is well defined. And so what you can look at, you can consider some kind of linear combinations of this GFF plus the GFF which lives on the other side. And the thing is, you cannot do anything, of course. But so, for instance, if I look at the sum of these two, I'll get a Neumann GFF. If I look at the difference, I will get a Dirichlet GFF on each side. That is a difference because on the boundary it's 0. And the thing is, for Toda CFT, you can actually twist a little bit. So you can look at the sum, but with a twist on the other side. In that case, you will get some mixture between Neumann, Dirichlet.
Oh, so you're trying to build more boundary conditions than the usual Dirichlet-Neumann.
Exactly. So it's some kind of mixture between Dirichlet and Neumann. Actually, to each automorphism of your system, you have something like this. Yeah. Okay. Now it's time to move to the symmetries, and I think it will be like super fast. So for the symmetries, the classical the picture that we saw this morning is you want to construct a Hilbert space which lives on a circle. So the picture to keep in mind is that you take a circle S1, and on this circle you have a function phi, a field phi. And typically, so in the UV CFT, the space, the Hilbert space that you consider is the L2 space of such function. So the way to write a function on this circle is just to write C plus, so just y expansion. And so if I denote, so actually it's just, so A. So what do I mean by that? This C is this A, and this omega is just C to the R, to the Z. So basically, a function of a function on a circle is just a function of infinitely many variables. And each of these variables is just a Fourier mode. So I just look at the Fourier mode of this function. So this is the Hilbert space considered in Liouville and Toda CFT. And actually, what I want to do here is more to have to look at the algebraic structure. So instead of looking at this big Hilbert space, I will look at a related space. So the related space is just the one that Kelly discussed on Monday, which is one of the gradient GFFs, or sort of. So I can consider V, which is the L2 of this omega, with the DPS1. I forgot to say DPS1. Under DPS1, the modes are chosen in such a way that you get local latitude on a circle. So. Okay, maybe we just assume that R equal 1 and 1 is that thing. So starting from now, R equal 1. Otherwise, so I have so it's not a question, it's not a free field because it's not, the free field is what we saw this morning, like a Brownian bridge. But here I have a local altitude on the circle. And I look at the L2 space of like this gradient GFF. And actually, this space, naturally, I have some natural elements of this space. So for instance, I can look at something that I will call the vacuum, which is just, I take a phi like this, and I just give y. It's not super interesting, but it defines the vacuum. I can also define other element of this space, like for instance, I look at the coordinate n. Okay. More generally, if I take a multi-index n with n1, oh, no, this is the other direction. And then I will define this as the map which gives n1. So I have some natural states on this space. And actually this gives me some structure for grading states. So I have natural gradation associated to this. So what do I mean by that? Is that I can write first, I can write an algebraic direct sum of these maps, the map that I introduced before. Okay. And then I take the L2 closure of this space. So this is some kind of inner chaos decomposition. Okay, so this is still some probabilistic structure. So I see some structure of L2 space here. But now maybe I will try to forget about this L2 structure. And I will look at a different structure, which is that of Fock space. So basically, there is an alternative way of representing this AN on AM. So for that, I can introduce some operator acting on my vector space. So I put AN, which is just for n bigger than 0 and n smaller than 0. These are the annihilation and creation operator. And the fact is, it's one-line computation, and this satisfies the commutation relations of the Heisenberg algebra. So what I have, so it tells me that I have a representation of Heisenberg algebra within my probabilistic model. Okay, and then where the structure of space arises, okay, it's just that I have that when I apply AN to the vacuum, it is just 0. On AN apply, so for n greater than 0, I have not defined the 0, but you can just take it equal to 0. I can define it if you want. And if I take n smaller than 0, I have this is equal to phi n, modulo I. So this tells me that if I set V plus to be like the algebraic direct sum of this one, so it's complex plan for to say, of this AN. This gives me a Fock space representation. So I have a Fock space. So this is just the same as acting using creation operator. Okay. Okay, what is the connection? No, this space, so it is just the same Fock space. I hope, Carlos, it is the same. You have to know that I have not said too many stupid things. So, in case, I think it is the same Fock space. And now, I want to move to the structure of vertex algebras, which is hidden in this probabilistic model. So for this, I will describe to you an alternative description of this space. So basically, I can see this circle as the boundary of a disk. In this disk, there lives a field X, which I will take equal to the following. So this will be the directed GFF, and this is harmonic expansion. So I had another protagonist in all this story. And then if I do that, it's easy to check that if I take the expectation of this kind of random variable, which of course needs some proper regularization, then this is just the map that gives me phi n, because it is centered. More generally, if I want to get a product of phi n1, phi np, what I can do is consider instead something that Tom discussed on Monday as well. So I can consider like this kind of expression, like weak products of derivatives of this GFF. And this, in fact, is equal to the map that is phi and gives me phi n1, phi np. So this, of course, you require some regularization and some weak product, whatever, but you can make sense of this. And then the question is, I have this thing which depends only on X at the origin. But of course, my field actually lives on the whole disk. And here I'm looking at only at information that is evaluated at the origin. So how can I implement more? So the question is, what for z different than 0? And this is where we need a structure of the text. So typically, sorry, I think I'm, as usual, I've run a bit over time. Get used to it now. So what I want to consider is this kind of, I want to add an extra dependence in other point, an additional point that lives inside the disk. At least I fix a z, and I want to consider something like and the way I want to think about this object is that I really want to think of this as an operation on an operator depending on z on this precise the initial element of the vector space. So I really want to think of this as something that I will denote by this. So naturally, this thing I want to associate to this element z as an operator acting on this element. The question is then, what is the meaning of this writing? Of course, as you may suspect, this is just the same y as the one that we have in the vertex algebra setting. So the claim is this defines the vertex algebra, which is isomorphic to the Heisenberg vertex algebra. This expression. So you have a very probabilistic definition of the Heisenberg vertex algebra just out of this GFF, Dirichlet GFF. Maybe for probabilists to, I think. So I wanted to talk about a bit about W algebras, all this kind of stuff, of the other algebras. But if you want to go from this Heisenberg is really big, and if you want to go to Virasoro or W algebras, you need to kill some elements of your space. And the way to do that is using straining operators. So this is a paper by Hegel and Fenkel. Actually, it turns out that these straining operators, they satisfy the exact property that you want to go from the free field to Liouville on Toda CFTs. Yeah, maybe I can say that if you look at this expression, it's very easy to see that the axioms of vertex algebra satisfy, like the vacuum axiom. It's really easy to see on this locality as well. So I think maybe I will stop there. And if you have some other questions, I'm happy to answer.